Today I'm reacting to your filmmaking hot takes. Okay, so this is something that I've seen online recently. The MKBHD channel did this with tech hot takes and I found it really entertaining. So I want to try it on this channel, but specifically for filmmaking. So I asked you on my Instagram story to give me your hottest, spiciest filmmaking takes, and we're going to react to a few of them today and find out if they're good takes or bad takes. So the first one that I have is rigs are a waste of money. And there's two ways I think you can build your rig out, because I think I know what this person is trying to get at. And I think you can build a rig for efficiency, so things like adding a V-mount battery so you don't have to change your batteries all day, using a larger monitor so that it's easier for you to frame your shots, using a wireless video system so that a client can have a monitor while you film. These are all things that can make your shoot day when you're filming something more efficient. And you can also build a camera rig for appearance. So adding large parts that make your camera look unnecessarily larger than it needs to be. Maybe adding top handles and side handles all over the place when you don't necessarily need them. Those things are maybe where this person is saying that camera rigs are a waste of money. But let's be honest, even if that is what you're doing, there is perceived value from clients when you show up on a set or to a job holding a bigger, more professional looking camera. And even if your rig isn't really doing much for you except for giving you that look of a bigger, more professional camera, the perceived value that adds could realistically be worth real money. And if you're spending money to add value to the work you're doing, even if it's only perceived value, then I don't necessarily think that's a waste of money. Do I agree with it? Different conversation, but that's not exactly what this question is talking about here. And then furthermore, if you're actually building a rig for efficiency to make your filming days easier, then that's certainly not a waste of money, because the money you're spending on your rig is making your time on set and at jobs go more smoothly. So whether you're building your rig for efficiency or appearance or both, I'm just going to say that this is a bad take. The next take I got a lot of is Canon over Sony. No, Sony's better than Canon. They're the best bang for your buck system. This camera brand, that camera brand, and I hear it all the time. Look, I shoot with Sony. I love Sony. It really works for me and what I specifically need it to do. And because I'm invested in the Sony ecosystem, if another camera brand were to release a similar or even better product to the ones that I currently use from Sony, I'm not as likely to move over, because there's a cost for me to move camera systems and get new lenses and sell my bodies. It takes time and it takes money that I'm not necessarily willing to spend. But if I was in the Canon system already and I didn't want to make that switch over to Sony, then I'd probably be shooting with something like a C70 right now. And I'm sure that I could make great videos with that as well. Now, I will admit that everyone in my space, which is sports videography, seems to be using Sony. It's for sure the most popular camera brand in that specific area. And being with a bunch of other video shooters who film using Sony cameras on a job with multiple cameras makes it very easy to make footage look the same and just make everything work. Like, there's no denying there's workflow benefits to everyone shooting on the same camera. But I've also worked with Canon footage, Blackmagic footage, Red footage with my Sony camera on projects, and it's all worked just fine, and you can make it all look good together. So to say that one brand is better than the other because of this look or that look, or because they have this camera at this price point, just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because different brands have different cameras at different price points with different features. And what you specifically need for your job is going to be different from the next person depending on what you do. So although one brand might be better for one person, another brand and their specific cameras with their specific feature sets may be higher resolution, higher frame rates, but no autofocus. Blackmagic is something that might make sense for you. So I don't think that there's one camera brand that's universally better, and people can argue their camera brands all day, but I'm just not going to buy it, even if I'm a bit of a Sony stan and that's what I do, or at least until someone wants to give me a better product. Although there might be a better camera brand for you, this is a bad take. The next hot take we have is an f2.8 aperture lens is overrated for the price. And this is a spicy one because people love their f2.8 zoom lenses. And now this part may not be a necessary explanation for everybody, but for those who are watching who need it, I'm going to do it. So f-stop is essentially measuring the size of the iris in your camera. So your aperture can open and let more light in, which constitutes a lower numbered f-stop like f1.4, or it can close and let less light in, which constitutes a higher number f-stop like f5.6, for example. And at those lower numbered f-stops, when you're letting more light hit your sensor, you're also getting a shallower depth of field in your image, which means a background that becomes blurry faster. And I think a lot of people who buy f2.8 zoom lenses are doing it to get that shallow depth of field, that creamy, blurry background. But there's a lot of ways that you can get a shallow depth of field. You can, yes, use a wider aperture or lower f-stop number like f1.4, f2.8, something of that nature. But you can also use a longer focal length or move your subject further away from the background. Those things are also going to give you a shallower depth of field. And look, I know that like shooting with a 35mm at like f1.4 and having a completely creamy, blurry background is a trendy thing to do nowadays online. Trust me, I also do it, but that doesn't mean you absolutely have to film that way for everything necessarily. No, I'm not just discrediting f2.8 aperture lenses. If you're a photographer, there's a ton of times where you really need the extra light that comes with an f2.8 aperture as opposed to an f4 aperture or something like that, so that you can crank your shutter speed that much faster and freeze motion in your image. But this is filmmaking hot takes. So considering the low light capabilities of a ton of cameras today, and that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people who are buying f2.8 aperture zoom lenses are doing so to get a shallower depth of field, I'm inclined to agree with this one and say that this is a good take. The next hot take we have is auto white balance and then a bunch of greater than signs. And like, look, if you're filming in the field in an uncontrolled environment, like at a sports game or at a concert or something of that nature, there is going to be different white balances in different parts of the space that you're filming in. And as you point your camera from one space to another, the auto white balance, if you're using that setting, is going to change the color of your image. The problem is sometimes your auto white balance isn't gonna react to changes in color as fast as you can move your camera. So what you'll have happen sometimes when you're using auto white balance is you'll move your camera from here to there, and then the camera won't register the change in white balance until you've already moved the camera to that second position. And then you'll just get a color shift in the middle of your shot, which is pretty undesirable and very hard to correct out of your image. So for that, I don't like using auto white balance when you're in an uncontrolled environment. But let's say you're in a controlled environment. Well, in a controlled environment, you're setting up all the lights. You're choosing what the white balance is. And if you're setting up all the lights and dialing in a look that you want, then you should pick the white balance that corresponds with the look that you're going for. You shouldn't just leave it up to the camera by chance. I think that no matter what you're shooting, you should be intentional about either picking a white balance that matches the look you want or setting a white balance to display the environment how it actually is, which means showing the areas that have a in real life cooler white balance as cooler, and the areas that in real life have a warmer white balance to be warmer. So overall, I just don't think auto white balance is useful at all, except for maybe a couple of very fringe cases, and I'm very much inclined to disagree with this one. Bad take, and not close. Sorry. This is a bit of a fast one. kind of my first time trying this type of thing. But if you liked it, let me know in the comments and drop your hot takes down there so I can use them in the next video. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel because I post videography and video editing tips and tutorial videos similar to this one on a regular basis. And I would love to have you around for that. And that's going to be all for today. So until next time, peace.